Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast brought to you by racefortheprize.com. Let's look at the value picks for the Darlington Cup Series slate. You can see in the spreadsheet who I like under 7K. Josh Berry, pretty obvious. Everyone's going to go there. Austin Cindric also going to be a really big play. We'll break those down and look at their practice laps, talk more about them in a second. They are your safest options if you are running away from the video now. I like Todd Gilliland a lot, and I'll go into why I like this play, but it is worth thinking about, all right, do I really need to go there? Do I need to build the optimal lineup? Maybe just building the winning lineup. You probably aren't going to want to play Gilliland and cash. Chase Briscoe kind of fits the same mold. Michael McDowell fits the same mold. Big floors on those guys. You're not really going to want to go after them in cash. And with Briscoe and McDowell, you're not even really getting the savings. We'll talk Gilly in a second, but Barry and Cindric, if you don't have much time, those are going to be two of the most popular value plays on the slate, and I don't see any problem with that. We'll break them down a little bit further. So there you can see it again. If you want to get access to the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet, you can see the information here. PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, send it over to me, and you can get all of this glorious data and build your lineups. Thank you, and like and subscribe and share. Let's go into the laps, and we will talk Gilly first. You have to be very, very impressed with this lap data. And he demonstrated maybe not the best short run speed. It's comparable to everybody else. Pretty good long run speed. I know you just think, oh, well, it's Todd Gilliland. Look, I don't expect him to beat any of the drivers above him in the starting grid. They all should finish where they are. But then when you start comparing him to the back pack, to the Lemons class, he has more speed this weekend than any of them. You look at the long run speed, and it's not even comparable. So if practice really means anything, then his car is better than them, and he should finish ahead of them. And look, maybe Blaney gets ahead of him, and he drops a spot here. But he should be able to outrace his teammate McDowell. They're going to be right there. Front row has been pretty good at Darlington over the last couple seasons. Bowman, when you look at brand name and Hendrick, yeah, Bowman should be able to finish better, but we know that Bowman typically has just been a top 15 car. I know he's been better lately, but not looking that great this weekend. Suarez definitely took a step forward, so maybe he races a little bit better, but hasn't really demonstrated top 15 speed either. So to see Gilly finish right around this area, it's not really a stretch. You look down here, there's a couple cars that could pass him, but they got to work their way through traffic. It's not going to be easy for them. So again, I don't see him going much further, but when you look at his speed, he should be able to hang around in that spot. That being said, again, going back to, do I need to build the optimal lineup or the winning lineup? So if you want to play it safe and you don't want to go near him, that's fine. But I do think he should be in your pool, especially in tournaments. You're probably going to get lower ownership because I don't think anyone's going to really trust Gilliland. He has been slightly better in the spring races as opposed to the night race in the Southern 500. So keep him in your pool. Now we'll go with maybe the safer options and discuss our Lemons class. And it's basically from Stenhouse down to Josh Berry. And I wish that this wasn't on the screen here. Can I move this? Can I move this box? Yeah, good, perfect, awesome. Technology is awesome. We'll just start with the first two obvious picks, Austin Cindric, Josh Berry, both showing the most speed in practice among the Lemons class. Again, if we're following our flow chart and we're looking for value drivers, what we're asking ourselves is who can maximize finishing position among the Lemons, among the value, among the LM class, the C class, whatever you want to call it. Who can maximize finishing position? And Cindric and Berry have shown speed over the last couple weeks. They are building speed a little bit, and they showed that speed in practice. Clearly, better long-run speed than anybody in this pack. So, first of all, on our flow chart, can they win this class? And yes, I can see not only Cindric winning this class, and we've got Stenhouse at the front of it, really starting 20th, Cindric starting 25th. I can easily see him winning the class, finishing 20th, and even going further. Berry also, although he's going to be starting in traffic and is much deeper back here, he has the car, has been moving forward recently, can definitely get to the top of this class. So following on our flow chart, it's who can maximize finishing position in the class, win the class. But then step 2 is who can also add, because we're talking about DFS, place differential. So it's clearly going to be Barry in that case, maximizing that. But Cindric starting 25th also gives you plenty of place differential upside. So there is your obvious picks. Now, as we break down these other drivers, Stenhouse, a little bit more fall off than I would like to see, but has enough speed that when we look at these guys, probably will finish towards the top of this class. But then we go to step 2 of the flow chart. Sure, could he win the class? Yes. But can he maximize place differential? Not in comparison to Cindric, not in comparison to Barry. And starting at the front of that with the fall off, probably going to be a no for me. I think Hocevar is a little bit slower than some of these drivers and is going to slide down to probably 24th, 25th in this limits class. So not only do I think he's not going to win the class, he's probably going to get some negative place differential. Nemechek could probably creep up here, stay where he is. But then step 2 of our flow chart, does he maximize place differential? Not in comparison to Cindric, not in comparison to Barry. So he's going to be a tougher option to get to as well. Dillon doesn't really show much more speed in practice than any of these other drivers. We know that they haven't had much speed recently. Probably can maintain spot. Maybe doesn't win the class. Doesn't offer as much place differential. Not really into it. LaJoy, same thing. Maybe leaving a little less speed than Austin Dillon. Probably going to be around 22nd. And for all these drivers, you can boost them up, adding a little bit of attrition. Other drivers making mistakes. You have half the field in front of them. Half of the field's not going to be mistake-free. Half of the field is not going to run a complete race. 3 or 4 of those drivers starting ahead of them are going to fall out attrition-wise, and so you can boost them up. But you can say that for every one of these drivers from their conservative projection. So, he can finish 22nd, run around there, and maybe finish 18th. But then you could say the same thing for Austin Dillon. You can say the same thing for all of these drivers in these categories. So, again, we're asking, can you win the class? Priest, I don't think, has the speed to win the class. We've got tons of stuff going on with SHR. Probably moves up into this range of 22nd, 23rd. Is giving you a little bit more place differential. But I don't think I see it really. Look at the fall off is not as severe and went a little bit longer, but you compare it to Cindric. Cindric's much better. You compare it to Barry, much better. You can really throw a blanket over all of these drivers. Priest probably's got a little bit more speed than Smith and Haley and Hemrick. Should finish ahead of them, but doesn't really have more than Barry. Doesn't have more than Cindric. Doesn't have more than it's going to be close with him and Nemechek. Maybe he can get past Hocevar. Maybe Stenhouse makes a mistake. He does benefit from having a few more drivers in front of him, a few more drivers who could have mistakes and wreck out. But I don't really like going there. Smith and Haley, probably around 25th and 24th. Again, a little bit slower than these guys, but again, it's not really that much of a difference. You have your 2 standouts. Eric Jones is going to be an option that, I say often. He takes a 20th place race car and sometimes get it to the top 10. And Darlington is definitely a place where he's been able to do that in the past. His speeds probably weren't the greatest in practice for several reasons. One, not really being completely comfortable in the car just yet. Taking it a little bit easy. So you could make the argument that his speeds weren't that great because, he's fresh and back and new. But I still would have liked to have seen a little bit more. I mean, fall off is fall off, and his is significant. And it's not as fast as Cindric. It's not as fast as Barry. And it's really not even, maybe as a top 25 car this week, which he can get into 20th, but you're not getting a full amount of savings. I don't think I need to go there. He also was in Group A, so his speed should be a little bit better, and doesn't really separate himself from the rest of these guys. I mean, just compare him to, he should be faster than Zane Smith, and he's not really. And he has even a little bit more fall off. If you're looking close here, lap 19, his 19th. Now, these aren't technically lap 19 because we're doing a little funkiness with the data, but it makes the picture a little bit clearer that he should be faster than Zane Smith and Justin Haley, and he's equal, if not worse, in some cases. We don't really need to talk about Elliott. He's not really a part of this class. I would like to see more out of Elliott. He wasn't really super happy with his car, but I would imagine they're going to figure things out, and having a fast pit crew will help him out, but I don't know if he's going to have a top 5 day, probably getting around to the 10th place position. Then we go to the very bottom, and if you really had to go super punt, I wouldn't mind considering Harrison Burton. I know they've had tremendous struggles this season, but this is a place where they did have some standout performances last season, and his car isn't significantly slower than some of these drivers in the backpack. Doesn't fire off very well, but again, none of them are really firing off that well. And his fall off is not too much worse than anyone else. 15 laps in, a 159.2, same as Haley, Smith, and he's starting near the bottom. He's very cheap. If you are building in a certain way, I don't think I would completely avoid Harrison Burton. Usually I am completely avoiding Harrison Burton, and that's worked out for most people. But given his past experience at Darlington and looking at what he did in practice, it's not crazy to believe that he can finish around the middle of this pack. You throw in some attrition points, and then step 2 in our flow chart, he can maximize place differential with his starting position. That obviously Hosever and these drivers are starting too close to the front and probably have more speed and have had more success than Burton this year, but we're not asking Burton to win the class. If Burton can finish or at least run towards the middle of the class, maybe get some benefits from not wrecking at the end, and he's going to get the added place differential. He provides plenty of savings. I wouldn't cross that play off. And then obviously Noah Gragson is there, having his issue in qualifying, should be fine to I don't know. He's not even really a part of this class. He should be able to drive through these drivers, get up to the 20s. I don't know how much further he can get. It's not going to be easy to just walk through, but Gregson's a fine play as well. Again, hopefully that was helpful. Barry, Cindric, obviously are the picks. I think Burton, if you are punting, is a place to go. I wouldn't completely rule out Haley and Smith because they do give you plenty of savings. I mean, we go back over to our board, and they're cheap, and they're starting close enough to the back that Haley is an option. Probably go there before I go to Smith, obviously. And Burton, I think, because he is so cheap, he is starting in the back. He can run towards the middle of that class. He works. Again, Barry, Cindric, your guys. Gilly and GBPs, if you really are bold. And I think that pretty much covers it. So hopefully this was helpful. That's where I'm leaning in terms of value. Good luck. Blessed to have you guys around. Love you guys. Trip to Life Fantastic.